I'm Sherry Rothman. I'm the CMO of Stratavision. I'm joined today by Scott, who's our VP of Product, and Abhijit, who's our CTO, and they'll be doing parts of the presentation to follow. Scott, if you want to go to the first slide so I can get into who Stratavision is. So we are a pioneer in on-site computer vision analytics. For those, there may be somebody who's familiar with us from before. We were known as Deep North. We rebranded, renamed just this past summer to better reflect who we were as a company and where we were going with our clients. So again, we're focused on on-site analytics, leveraging AI-powered computer vision. Bottom line, we're trying to create better customer experiences. As you just briefly mentioned, the goal is to leverage existing infrastructure. So yes, there's a number of cameras everywhere, stores, banks, airports. And so our solution actually leverages that existing infrastructure, which is fantastic. It means that we can set up quickly and deploy very easily. Our company's expertise is in retail. Commercial real estate, we actually do marketing events like big, shows as well, is where we have some experience. But our solution can support a variety of industries as long, anybody is looking for on-site accurate analytics, we can apply our solution in those scenarios. One of the key attributes of our company is that we are international. We have presence across US, Canada, Europe, and South America. So that demonstrates that we can scale. And we also adhere to privacy standards internationally, which is a very critical point in this arena. Scott, can you? Excellent. So why are we here, Stratavision? What problem are we trying to solve? Our clients really have a lack of on-site intelligence. So if you think about the how much data and insight we get in an online world, especially coming out of COVID, where we were buried in it, you truly understand what your customers are doing online. What they're looking at, what they're buying, what they're not buying, what they're dropping out of their baskets. The depths of understanding of our consumer behavior online is excellent. Let's use an example of a retailer. As soon as someone walks into a store, we can count when they walk in. We know if they bought something, but what happens while they're on the floor? They could walk. What do they see first? How long do they spend in the shoe department? Did they wait too long in the change room line and abandon the line and then leave that shirt behind? So all you know is the number of people walking in, and whether or not they buy something or they don't, but you don't understand why they don't buy something. So are there blind spots, for example, again, in your store that you don't see or understand, which is costing you sales, which is the critical factor. So if our customers have more precise insights of their customer journeys, they're going to make better decisions around customer experience, labor optimization. Do they have enough people on the floor at the right time? Loss prevention, which is a real hot button right now, safety, maintenance, and marketing. So this is the core industry challenge that we're focused on as a business. I'm going to turn it over to Scott right now. He's going to get into a little deeper about the product.
Hopefully. Okay. Sorry, there's usually a delay between when I click the button and when it actually moves the slide. So, yeah, so as Sherry was talking about, what we're focused on, I would say as an organization is, using the in-store data, and it can be data from multiple points, to generate actionable insights and alerts and notifications. So typically what you find in a retail property or a retail store is, a myriad of task lists, right? So essentially, you have, okay, somebody needs to go check the bathroom every 2 hours. Somebody needs to go check the fitting room, make sure that there's not clothes piled up, et cetera, et cetera. And so what we're doing is we're leveraging, the arrival patterns of customers to start generating wisdom around where to position staff. And the reason why that's important, as Sherry mentioned, is, If somebody is standing at a jewelry counter and there's no associate there to help them, they literally cannot buy the ring that they're staring at, right? Um, we're also developing smart notifications so that way, if there is a high amount of traffic in a fitting room, we will send a notification saying, hey, you might need to send somebody to start clearing out and, reshelving some of the merchandise that is there. The other big one, retailers really have a hard time knowing when to open additional registers. So what we're doing now is we're utilizing the historical arrival patterns of people, comparing it to bubbles, and then estimating shopping time in the store. So that way you actually can open the register maybe 5 to 10 minutes before that person needs to check out, right? So it's really providing what I would call um, it's removing the task list orientation and putting it more into actionable insights related to it. The other component to the slide is if we have a myriad of, one, we can tell who's coming in, where they're going, are they interacting with associates, et cetera. We also have safety. As Tana had mentioned, a lot of safety. Is there a loading dock door open and no associate at the loading dock? So it's a risk of theft. Do you have somebody standing in a storage room that's actually not supposed to be there, right? The other big one is, are there cars idling in areas like fire zones, which is usually an indication that somebody's going to come in and do a grab and go, right? So there's just a lot of different ways in which we can leverage AI and the store's own data to generate what I would say is more action-oriented or event-driven notifications. Um, Really what we're trying to get to and what everybody's trying to get to is, maximizing results and conversion, right? You really want to have a better brand experience. And so what we're really trying to do is align the shopper's experiences, where they're going, what they're seeing, as well as, repositioning staff just in time. So, have somebody traditionally who's doing markdowns. Oh, hey, we have a bus of people that just unloaded. Grandma's nursing home bus has decided to stop at the store, and there's now 40 extra people that are coming in to shop, right? So using all of these types of data inputs and sensors to drive the next generation of notifications and alerts, basically trying to create that smart store. And that way you actually get a better brand experience. It's ultimately what we're trying to drive towards. How do we do this? So we have certain security solutions, but and Abhijit will actually talk about more on how we do this, but you can kind of see what we're trying to get to is, we have security solutions, we have our go-to-market, industry specific dashboards and KPIs. So we have, a retail platform, or it's a single platform, but we have retail KPIs, we have commercial property KPIs, doing some work with the government. As Sherry mentioned, we can do large scale events, trade shows, that type of thing, cultural venues, sporting events, and then all of it is kind of bound together and presented back to our customers. And then here's some of our industry specific solutions. We've kind of talked about the outputs related to it, but really what we're trying to get to is understanding what it is our customers are trying to get to. Are they trying to optimize that in-store experience? Are they trying to actually increase conversion? Are they trying to do a labor reduction play? So all of these are various levers that we can utilize the data related to it. Same thing with the commercial properties, right? Are there planned events having the draw that they're supposed to? When should they be scheduling maintenance activities? Understanding, I would say, danger spots in commercial properties. So there's a lot of emphasis or a lot of interest lately in trash compactors, making sure that people aren't around them and sending notifications when there are. So that way you're not having somebody stare at a dumpster all day. You actually get a notification when somebody walks up to the dumpster, right? And then you can quickly identify, is that person supposed to be there or not? So, I would say ultimately what we're trying to drive for is a use case experience, right? And so what we try to align with all of our customers is like, what's your desired outcome? So what is it that you're trying to do? In this example here, and this is just an example, you're trying to improve the store revenue. Then we work with our customers and say, what's your strategy around it, right? So it could be either increase the number of shoppers or increase the amount of spend, right? Then we move even further. So what is going to drive that? What's your initiative? And then we back into specifically what's your use case, right? What we find is taking this approach with our customers is actually extremely beneficial because it doesn't come off as a science experiment. In science experiments, you either prove that something works or it doesn't work. What we're trying to do is generate the value and the value proposition so that we can prove there is a return on investment related to these technologies. So on the right-hand side, you can see basically where we would align all of our KPIs related to the use case. So that way you're actually proving out the value of your investment itself. And then right now, I'm going to hand it over to Abhijit, who's going to cover the magic secret sauce.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Scott.
Hey, before we go into there,
Yeah.
I have a question. I want to make sure anybody else has a question too. So like with Lowe's in the past, we used cameras to look at, cars in the parking lot.
Mhm.
And then we had it tied up to their POC so that by, 8:30 on Saturday, we knew what their weekend was going to look like within 99% anyhow. So, but then we also used it to then understand the demographics of who was coming to the store so that we could hit that area of the store with or that area of town with advertising, because everybody was going to be working in their yard. Like if there was a neighborhood that had a high density of people in it, they would probably be working out in their yard, have Home Depot stuff, so then it would make everybody else understand it. So we would hit them with advertising, and was a extremely successful project. I'm kind of curious, what are some of the things that are driving revenue? What are some of the use cases that are not cost, not protection, but are revenue drivers?
Yeah, I can start. You guys can fill in. The easiest one is product placement, right? So we do a lot of reformats, new formats. Traditionally, what people typically do is they put products in what we would call high traffic areas, right? So right at the front of the store when people walk in the door. Typically, what we find the better approach is to put newer items or whatever it is you're trying to push into the area that has a higher dwell time, right? Because people are spending more time there and they're engaging more with the product. If you put it right next to the front of the door, what you're getting is people walking past it, right? And it's not necessarily leading to a conversion. So that's part one. I would say part two is understanding where the staff needs to be at any given time, right? So one, in low traffic time periods, obviously you want to have lower staffing levels. But at those peak times, there's a couple of different focus areas. One, if there's a section of the store where you as a shopper cannot access the merchandise directly, I'm thinking of like shoes, golf clubs, jewelry, you actually have to have somebody there to help those associates, right? And so that becomes a cost, but it also becomes part of the enabler of the sale, right? Fitting room is another example. They're expensive because you usually have to have somebody standing there, but they're also the highest touch area of the store, right? So aligning the labor is the cost component, and then the sales strategy and the changes related to where you're putting the associates and when throughout the day. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. I'll give you another one that we did with Grupo Éxito down in Colombia.
Mm-hmm.
So the way that their Grupo Éxito does it is, they have they're a big grocery store, Walmart type store,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then they're the key tenant in a mall, and malls down there have 500 stores, right? So, and so they're managing it, but they really weren't doing any kind of advertising based off traffic and based off the aggregate versus every store would do their own advertising, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if they put a sale on for milk and mothers came in and then we started hitting them, we could see, and then we had some other ways to identify with their cell phones and stuff where we would start hitting them with advertising.
Yeah.
Right. And then like, for example, if they were buying milk, then we'd send them something for a dress shop on the other side of the mall.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, and then we would look, and of course we were doing traffic analysis the whole way. Right. And how many stops they hit in between and et cetera, right? But because we were able to use computer vision to basically get an idea of all of that, we started looking at advertising in the malls as an aggregate versus individual. And I forget what the return was, but it was definitely double digit.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm just kind of curious if there's other use cases that you have somewhat similar to that.
We do have product placement and product interaction analytics. So we can, if you can tell usually within a day or two if a product wall is going to be successful, right? And so if you are engaging and gathering data related to it, you can make very quick decisions on this product wall and this product placement or this table or this end cap or et cetera isn't driving the turnaround that typically you could be seeing in other stores or other locations, or it's just not resonating with the shoppers at this specific location. So those are some other things. You can tie back to who's coming into your store. So, if your typical demographic is a female 25 to 35, we can actually identify that, but you would put your product and your product placement based on the demographics of who's coming in, right? And so if you're in, like I would say, retirement area, or there's going to be a different product placement and product assortment in those locations.
Yep.
The other one was like tourism. Like, why would you put a lot of housewares in a store that is primarily serviced by tourists, right? So there's a lot of different nuances related to it.
Cool. I think Eric had a question real quick. Eric?
Hey, hi guys. Yeah,
Hey.
this is pretty tied to some of the things we're doing, and it's pretty tied to some of the things we're doing. And I have a few questions for you. Number one, regarding the implementation, do you guys have like servers on site that have the models that are running, and then you bring it back to your cloud, or how does this work?
Obviously, you want to cover?
Yeah, I can talk about that, but as we go through the slides, it will become very evident. But basically, to answer your question, Eric, yes, we have GPU-based edge servers on site. They create metadata that goes to cloud, and from there we drive all the insights and alerts and so forth. So yes, we have.
Okay, so that goes along the privacy of the video on the client. So you're really analyzing the metadata rather than the video itself. Is that right?
We never send any images or videos to the cloud. All of them are processed on site, and that's one of the reasons why we are GDPR compliant. We never send any videos outside the premises itself.
I have
another question, and I would love to have a.
Go ahead, Eric. Sorry.
No, my question is, we've interacted in this way with others, and I'd like to have this offline later probably. But the thing is that there's many areas that cannot be covered properly by the video.
Oh my God, I'm telling you, I've got 3 clients that have now. Think about if you ever go to like a kiosk to get a snack or get your Coke, right? Vending machine, right? Think about the biggest vending machine in the world. Think about how many cameras in every single one of those vending machines. So what could you do with that data? I could look at traffic. I could look at weather. I could look at, like, there's literally 25 things I think off the top of my head that I could do with that kind of information in a network, right? And
not only that, we can with for instance, with LoRaWAN on those stores, we provide a temperature on the vegetables. You can also provide people counters on the areas which are not covered by the video to complement or complete the data that is not captured by the video within the store, for instance.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that when you combine all these technologies, you create a more enriched and comprehensive environment for the client.
Yes.
But it's something that I'm very interested to discuss with you.
I'll explain that in the next slide. Actually, we have a IoT data interface whereby we can ingest data coming from all other IoT devices, not just from cameras.
Cool. All right, now let me
Great.
get, I kind of sidetracked us. Let's get going on it. We got about, just to keep us on track, we got about 20 more minutes.
Tommy, I think before you were talking about interactive signage, like for
Yep.
instance, on the airports, it's very interesting to connect the video that does all the demographics, but then as you're moving across the halls, the signage can be displaying different type of advertisements in real time based on who's in front of that.
That's exactly right. Yes. All right, go ahead, please.
Okay, so all right, so just get into technology side. As you can see, there are 3 sections on this slide. First is we have 4 types of algorithms. Within that, each of the algorithm, there are multiple algorithms themselves, but 4 types are object detection and tracking, tracing, cross-camera, object re-ID, and pose estimation. So I'll get into each of these in a quick. Object detection is fundamentally through videos, find out how many objects are coming through, what type of objects, which means demographics. So that is the object detection. Tracking and tracing is basically how we can trace them within the same view so that we can accurately count the number of objects and so forth, and what type of objects as well. Third is probably one of the most key areas of our technology, cross-camera object re-ID. So the way, without using any facial features or any of the PII type of attributes, we make sure that we understand that object, and as that object moves from one camera to other camera, irrespective of count of cameras, whether it's 5 cameras or 500 cameras, we can track that object across a property like large property like a mall or a large store like Lowe's that Tommy mentioned, any of these such locations. We can track those objects. And last is pose estimation in terms of what that object is doing. Basically, it's a product interaction. So these are the types of algorithms, below which there are multiple algorithms, but these are 4 high-level types of algorithms. Then in between, we have Meridian platform. If you look at it lowest level, which is the on-prem devices or on-prem edge servers, which is where computer vision algorithms and inferences run, that provides that metadata to cloud side, where we drive the business insights and provide customers real-time alerts or predictive or prescriptive analytics and so forth. We support all basically public clouds, whether it's AWS, GCP, or Azure, any of these clouds, all or multi-clouds also. We are supporting all clouds. We are basically cloud agnostic, as well as we are on-prem server agnostic as well. Whether we don't care about whether it's Dell or HP or Lenovo or any other servers. Only criteria is we need NVIDIA GPU server present in that, or NVIDIA GPU card present in that. Otherwise, we are vendor agnostic as well as cloud agnostic. Scott, can you go to the next slide? Okay, so this is probably, Eric, some of your questions so will get probably resolved. We have basically these 4 tiers. This is all on basically our stack. At lowest level, we have IoT ingestion, and whether say IoT ingestion, it could be temperature sensors or weather sensors or cameras, which is the device interface. So we ingest RTSP streams coming from each of the cameras, and this could be typically secondary or tertiary streams. Primary streams go to their LP systems, vendors' LP systems, and we use secondary LP systems, so the LP secondary streams, so that primary stream is not impacted in any way, shape, or form. We ingest that through our processing or inferencing. We create metadata, as I mentioned, and as I mentioned, there are deep learning pipelines, as I mentioned previously, object detection, classification, action recognition, segmentation, gender, and re-ID matching. These are the typical algorithms that we have. Through them, we run and create the metadata, which is processed at the cloud. So ingestion of external data, we can do it at lowest level, which is at on-prem level, or we can do the same thing at cloud level also. So some of our customers use our platform to ingest data and basically get the API based data externally. So that is one option. Second option is we provide full-fledged dashboard, and Scott is going to give you some demo about that as well. But if you look at decision platform, that's where all the dashboards are supported. But if a customer wants to have data coming from our cloud platform through API form, we support that as well. Some customers basically say, just give us API data and then we will build our own decision platform. We support that as well. And some of customers say, we want soups to nuts entire solution in which we provide the dashboard as well. Any question on this slide? Okay, so this is a cloud platform really, how it is architected. As you will see on the left-hand side, we ingest either metadata generated by our own algorithms, telemetry data coming from on-site, as well as external data sources, whether it's POS, labor data, trash sensors information, weather information, and so forth. So it goes through certain level of pipelines through IoT streamers and PubSub mechanism, and it lands into.
Ajit, I just want to make sure we're going to do a deep dive with anybody who wants to follow up. We got a lot of business people on here. We got some tech people that will appreciate this, but we got a lot of business people.
I'll pass through this very quickly then.
Yeah, I think because we're almost down to 10 minutes, and I think the platform is, I think the platform sells itself. So
perfect. So then basically all I would say is through data pipelines, this data travels and becomes available through API for external ingestion, whether it's our internal dashboard or customer's dashboard. Scott, can you go to the next slide, please? Back to you, Scott or Sherry.
Yeah, before we head into the demo, which I think everybody's interested in doing, I just want to make sure that I highlight why the solution is, I would say, better than others out there. There's a lot of people talking about this, but our strengths lie in the fact that we are seamlessly integrating with existing infrastructure, as we mentioned, and there's so much access these days. The IP-backed technology is something that really excited me when I came on board to this company. The fact that we can actually continuously track a customer or employee throughout the property, camera to camera. So that is very unique to our solution, given the accuracy that we can achieve. So I really want to emphasize that. Our algorithms are adaptable and purpose-built, so it's for each specific use case. So that makes sure that we're ensuring delivery of precise, and again, I'm going to say very highly accurate insights, which is a huge differentiator. As we mentioned before, the on-premise video processing is key. It keeps the cost down of moving the data to the cloud. It also makes sure, and this is again so critical these days, that we're adhering to strict privacy standards. The scalability of our platform, we realize, is a huge differentiator. The fact that not only to the number of cameras that we can deploy this to, the number of stores, countries, on and on. It is a fully scalable solution. And the enterprise-grade services is a priority for us. This is a very mature, lots of industry expertise team. Ensuring that we have a service excellence that we're delivering is a priority for us. And the fact, again, that we can seamlessly scale is a key differentiator for us. And then I'm going to send it off to Scott so he can show you the platform.
Okay. Can you guys see this okay? You're not still looking at a slide, are you?
No, we're good. We're good.
Okay. Just making sure. Okay, so this is a demo version of our platform. So it doesn't have all of the bells and whistles, I would say, that a lot of our customers are looking for. And it's actually still under construction for NRF, to be honest. So we're getting there. So right now we currently have one store loaded in here. But you can see, this is the opening page. There's, essentially this is, how many people have come in for the last hour. You can see the current occupancy level of the store, the cumulative number of entries since they've been opened. The number of visits per day. So, there's a comparison to yesterday, today, yesterday, last week, all of that kind of stuff. So you can kind of customize this a little bit. You can see, the data related to the 20th versus the 13th on the occupancy level, the level of visits, the average dwell time. So, essentially we're calculating at the site level, how much time are people spending at the store. And that really is critical when we start to look at, understanding when we need to send alerts and notifications to man additional registers or to deploy additional staff. Here you see the start of a breakdown or summary of where people are going. So these are the top 5 zones as of 12 p.m. What time is it now? It's 1:34. So this will update. Looking at this, we also have level of analytics related to it. Here you can see date, total entries, total exits, the dwell time. And then we also have another metric, which is called unique visitors. So unique visitors for us and this is actually configurable per customer. But essentially, if somebody is on the location or on the property for, let's say, 3 hours, we're going to assume that that's an employee. And if somebody, let's say, is in the property but less than, let's say, 4 minutes, like I said, these are configurable, then we would assume that that person is just passing through the store to get to another store on the other side, right? And so what this allows us to do is to actually track or quantify the unique people that are walking into the store. So we're removing employees out of that count. We're removing pass-through individuals. The third component to that is if somebody leaves and for whatever reason it's like, oh, I really like, that red sweater, and then they come back, that return trip is only counted as a single trip, right? So we're not counting that person twice. The so what factor to all of that is, one, you understand how many truly unique individuals are coming in, especially if your selling model is, greeting people at the door or helping them walk to their car. So that right there is a huge differentiator for us. And the downstream effect of that is it really gives you a much more accurate view on conversion, right? And so that's the key thing is people really want to understand how many unique shoppers came in. And then, the secondary component is where did they go, right? So from here, we can start to pull apart where did they go, how much time did they spend. So this is the number, let's not do backroom. Beauty and intimate entries, unique visitors. So there was 2,583 people that actually entered that zone or that department. But out of that, given the criteria that I just said, some of them could have been employees that are working. Some of them could be people just walking through. So the number of unique visitors, 838. Total maximum traffic occupancy is 405. And then as you can see right here, the dwell time in that location, about 25 minutes, right? So we can do this department by department and truly start to understand, how much time people are spending and essentially what's their path throughout the store. The one thing that we haven't put into this demo set yet is understanding, their path throughout the store. So we have it for our customers, but I didn't want to show you customer data. It's a little tricky, but we do have heat maps, we do have traffic counts, and we do have the dwell time by department by day, right? And we also have a visualization key, which is called the SAN key. So it starts to show you like the order in which people go to each department. So that I'm going to leave a couple minutes for questions in case anybody has any, because I'm trying to also be mindful of whoever's going next.
Right, understand. Yeah, I'll give you 3 other use cases that are interesting that I've used in the past. One, we use computer vision basically on a pig farm of all places, to be able to identify the runts and the sick, to be able to pull out the sick quicker if there was some kind of disease or something like that. And then the runts, we could pull them out, isolate them, and feed them separately. And so, and we had over a 20% reduction in lost animals when we did that. That was a pretty interesting one. And then another one was we used it on a winery or on a wine for agriculture. We could actually look at the color of grapes. We could and predict when they were going to be the optimal position and priming. We also looked at it versus insects to see if there were any insects, movement, that type of thing. And I forget what the third one was. Maybe it was the dirt. But we had 3 different use cases on that one. And then another one that's fairly new is a good friend of mine, Mike, used to work with, has used computer vision in a fire alarm. It actually can look at the smoke and through AI basically determine the color of the smoke, which will tell you what kind of fire it is. So it could be electric, it could be different kinds of causes of fire.
Mhm.
And so my point is to everybody is computer vision has got hundreds of use cases. It's just not too many people think about it and think about how they can apply that within their manufacturing facility, store, whatever it is, right? They're just not thinking about it. It needs to be utilized more. Yeah, go ahead, Shane.
Yeah, so a couple of questions from my side. I've used computer vision pretty stringently for the past 10, 15 years. On a regulatory front, when I was head of innovation over at Blue Prism, we had built a computer vision model that can identify cancer 6 weeks earlier. And we were trying to sell that to the US market through the FDA market. And it was extremely difficult because they came back and said, what if the model misdiagnosed? So you can't sue a computer, basically. But then sold it to the European market and did well there. My question to you is, are you facing regulatory pressures or compliance issues on the computer vision side when it relates to those type of use cases that are regulated, i.e. medicine, health, safety, those type of things, and how are you dealing with that? That's question number one. And then question number two, it's kind of more technical, and it may be more about resolution. So how, if I have a satellite in space that I need analysis on understanding where deforestation is happening and how that's in, and then calculating the financial risk of that. I didn't know what kind of resolution you need. Do you need it all the way down to meter by meter, or can you just have a blurry picture? So those are the two questions I have for you guys.
Okay, so I'm going to pick on Abhijit on the security one. So we do have or have developed models for security and compliance and that kind of thing. And I know that we've vetted those. One with we have a guy on our staff that is specializes in all of the compliance laws throughout the world, right? And so we do vet all of those things before we push them out. But Abhijit,
so I can elaborate on that.
Yeah.
So basically what happens is, if you look at our presentation as well as how we operate, fundamentally it is not at individual person, but it is at an aggregate level. So that is one. We always maintain those video processing on-prem. And when we track objects, which is people across multiple cameras, we never look into their specific facial features or individual features. We create something called vector attributes for every bounding box, and then that vector attributes basically is completely reversible, and that's the vector attribute is what we use across to track that person. So with this, there is a full compliance to all privacy laws that we have in US or Europe, CCPA, for example, in California, GDPR in EU region. So we're compliant in all those regions.
So,
So
and then, sorry to interrupt you. And in that
Yeah.
situation, when you're tracking camera to camera, are you also tracking the object that that person might be carrying? So, let's say I'm in a store and, I stole a shirt,
Mhm.
and that shirt is an object. Are you tracking and tracing that versus I walked into a store with my own shirt that might look the same color? Does that make
right.
sense?
So yeah, no, I get. So we don't. So this is how it will work. Let's assume that you went to a store with black shirt. You went to a fitting room, changed to a different, say, red shirt, and then you started walking in the store through red shirt. From our perspective, you are two different objects, one wearing black shirt and one wearing red shirt. So we don't. So we basically said that this is the new object that we found, who happens to be wearing now red shirt. So in that scenario, there are two different people. So we are not tracking stealing of a shirt in that scenario, because if we need to track that, we'll have to look into your facial features, which will be privacy issue and all that. So we are not doing that.
Okay, and then the next question is more about security. I've worked with some federal agencies before, so identifying a weapon that the person may be having as a threat, are you doing identification of threat assessments or anything like that at all?
No, we are not doing any of threat assessment in terms of somebody's carrying a weapon or anything of that sort.
Okay, thank you.
Interesting.
And going to your second
The
question,
satellite
in terms
imaging,
of
yeah.
imaging.
How crisp do you have to have that image?
So we are not doing anything from satellite perspective. What we are doing is in-store retail or commercial properties or airports and so forth. So what typically we need from camera feeds is standard about 10 FPS speed, 10 FPS feed, and 1080 by basically 1080p resolution, or even we can make do with even 720p resolution.
Okay, thank you.
It's interesting. Are y'all focused mainly just on video, or what about drone, satellite, etc.? For example, I know there's a project that the UN wants to do. They're talking to Esri. Esri's talking to me about being able to kind of map out, let's say, a mountainside, and then being able to predict over time mudslides, or if it's mining the degradation of the land to predict
We have
cave-ins, that type of
we
thing.
have the technological ability to do it. From commercial standpoint, we are not entered into that market.
Mhm. Okay,
Yeah.
Eric, did you have a question?
No, I was just gonna say that I have a partner that's in some of this space too, so I'd be interested in learning more. But that weapon one that just came up, they're actually working on that. So
Gotcha. I thought there was another question from Eric Schumer. Did I put Eric on hold? Shit, I may have put Eric on hold.
I think Garrett put Eric on hold.
Okay. All right. Okay, well, let's move on. I appreciate it, guys. And again, I'm a big believer in this space, so I think there's unlimited potential. So there's so many cameras out there that are not being used just to collect data for marketing purposes, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
Right. So you think about it, another one that I was talking to is every bus station in Medellin has a camera. Why couldn't I, and they're all on street, every bus stop's on street, so why couldn't I use the camera to go outwards and certainly look at theft and safety and all that, but why couldn't I predict traffic patterns or be able to predict who's walking by and collecting that data for the retailers near that bus store to actually do marketing, right? So they're just unlimited amounts of use cases. All
Well,
right.
thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.